Hi, everybody. This is Addison Shanland at AirInsight. Today is July 5, 2021. My guest today is Oleg Evdokimov, who is the CEO of ATO Air LLC. And you are joining me today from St. Petersburg in Russia. Thank you, Oleg, for speaking with me.
Glad to be with you.
Thank you. So perhaps I'll just introduce you a little bit to my audience. I came across Oleg's LinkedIn profile, and he has some fascinating views and also is an interesting perspective from Russia and a CIS aspect or view on commercial aviation, which I think our audience will enjoy. So perhaps, Oleg, you can start off by telling us a little bit about ATO.
It's a relatively new company. It was registered in United States of America in December 2020 as a reaction to COVID, with idea to set up some new business in aviation industry, some new startup airlines, or to help existing airlines to survive. So there's nothing special about this company. It's just on the way to success.
Okay, well, I wish you success. What is your background in aviation?
This is a more interesting story, and it starts long time ago. Actually, as anybody, my experience with aviation starts with my personal flights. And it was about 30 years ago. My basic education is economy. I'm economist and I'm specialist in mathematical methods in economy. I was 15 when I won All Soviet Union Mathematical Olympiad by the magazine Quant. And the people around me, they believe that I will be a poor mathematician concentrated on math. But I start feeling that it's a bit dry for me, and I decided to switch from mathematical faculty to economy faculty, and I never regret. And that's somehow how I connected with aviation. Economy of aviation is my priority. And the first touch with a real touch with aviation was in 1995. I just finished my professional chess career in 1994 and come back to economy to have a look what's wrong with the modern economy, why we don't have a paradise on this planet with a very well developed level of instruments, let's say like that. And I decided that the key point that we do not use properly what we produce. I give you just few samples. For example, in New York, if you go to top class restaurant, at the end of the day, you will see that strawberry, which is not finished, they just threw away. They don't use it for charity, for example, which is simple. Same story in Europe, in Holland, with the milk. If they produce more milk than possible according to the law or regulations, they do not send this milk to Africa, for example. They just send this milk to the river, destroy the milk. And the same story in many fields. And in aviation, you know, anytime you're flying and you see empty seat, you understood that someone destroy resources. So I wrote what I'm calling the theory of saving resources, and aviation is really part of this theory. I come to conclusion that what is needed to be done is to arrange everything in the industry so that no empty seats, no empty seats. And even on a legal point of view, it will be nice to have a sort of a governmental declaration that if the plane have a load factor less let's say 50%, the flight is not allowed. This will make companies to study how to optimize their fleet, their destinations, to avoid destroying of resources. Each seat is a resource. You put fuel for full flight, but then if you didn't manage to organize it well, you lose your resources. And in 1995, by chance, I was elected by president of Batwinik Chess Fund, and I was suggested to organize the first memorial of Mikhail Batwinik, who was the first Soviet world chess champion for 15 years. And well, I agreed, but the fund didn't have any resources, and it was needed to find in just 1 month enough resources to organize high-level event, because the Batwinik name is a really great one, and you can make just ordinary event for his memory. And by chance, Transaero Airlines did set up at that time, and in July 1995, they were opening office in St. Petersburg, where I'm now. And I decided to visit them. And I was lucky. I come in the moment when the president of the Transaero Airline was there, and I got a chance to talk to him. My proposal was very simple. We give you a title of general sponsor of Batwinik Memorial in exchange for some seats for free. And we take only seats which are free 1 day before the flight. And we will not take the seats for those who are already your permanent clients, members of your frequent flyer programs or similar. And he was young, ambitious, in good mood, and he agreed we sign a deal. And from these empty seats, I organized a fantastic event of 17 category. I exchanged these seats for advertising space, first of all, providing the opportunity to fly for the owners of German magazine Cinema. Then I exchanged advertising space in this cinema for all what I was needed for this tournament. Advertising for the hotel where we got space for free, rooms for free. So the whole event was organized from, let's say, lost resources of Transaero. And they got marketing, a lot of publicity, because we put a great banner, and TV reports with their banner was on all Russians that, yeah, on all Russians already TV broadcast, and well, it was a fantastic success. We did this event from nothing, and Transaero was happy. We extended the agreement and organized some more events based on this. Then it was that I started to study frequent flyer programs of airlines, and I find a lot of mistakes with different airlines. Later, I was suggested to do consultancy to Air France on this matter. They really have very weak program for frequent flyers. And 5 years ago, I started to write on a regular basis on LinkedIn about my ideas in aviation. The important point was Qatar Crisis. Qatar Crisis, when Qatar was in situation they can't fly everywhere, at least directly. So
you mean over Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, yeah. And they were losing a lot of fuel for nothing, because they
had to go the long way around.
Yeah. So I wrote an article published on LinkedIn, Qatar Airways, what to do now. And the suggestion was to use the fleet, which they can't properly use inside of Qatar, outside of Qatar. So not to be banned by these regulations. And by chance, it happened that 6 months later, the new venture was organized, and it was Air Italy by chance. Qatar invested in Air Italy, got 49% of shares, and it's a new European, not really new, it was Meridiano before, but sort of different airline. And they start operating from Milano to United States and to Maldives and many other destinations. And since that, I'm on a regular base trying to suggest something. I start to promote Superjet because it's a Russian plane, and I have some vision for this plane. That's basically my background.
So you've been creative around the space, and I guess that kind of actually the Air Italy thing is what caught my attention particularly, because I remember you writing about Superjet being a solution, and I said, well, you know, Superjet isn't certified in the US, and you jumped on me and said, mistake, Interjet. Interjet. And of course, I'd forgotten about Interjet because they're out of business. But let's start off with Superjet. What is the status of the Superjet program out of Venice? Superjet International, we don't hear much news from them anymore, but obviously there's the Russian version of the Superjet, which is going to be using less and less Western technology, so that there's no problems with that airplane around the world. But at the same time, Superjet does not have a great reputation for support for their airplane. How do you feel about that?
We have to look sometime back to Interjet story. I wrote more than 10 articles about Interjet. It came to my attention that that's something really wrong. They either do not use the plane properly or whatever. And I studied their timetable 3 years ago. Something like 15 planes was operating. First, what I found that media is obviously cheating about the situation. There was a report in Bloomberg that some superjets cannibalized. And I decided to check if this is true or not. And it's easy to check, by the way. You go to Flight Radar. The article was in January, so you check February, March, April, May, and you put on list which planes was flying these 4 months. And suddenly I realized that all so-called cannibalized planes were flying after, which is impossible. If you cannibalize the plane, exactly. It cannot fly after. But all 22 were flying. So this was the basic point of cheating. They like this cheating. They spread this cheating everywhere, and they start to cry that we cannibalizing planes because we didn't get spares from Russia. So if you don't get spares, I start to check if in Russia we have spares or not. And I found that we have warehouse in Zhukovsky, one of the airports near Moscow. And in this warehouse, suddenly I found that there is spares for 150 million euros. So plenty of spares. There is maybe 15 hours flight from Moscow to Mexico, and not a big deal to deliver any spares. But at the same time, I learned that Interjet did not pay for the previous spares. Suddenly they decide that because media helped them to cheat, that they are not obligated to pay for spares. They stop paying for spares and continue crying, no spares, no spares. And the next move was unbelievable. you probably know that they have Superjets as own planes. It's a property of the company. And they started to lease another 20 Airbus 320, and they pay heavy leasing fees instead of using Superjets, which was fully operational. So this was a really criminal trick. Someone, I believe, in Interjet is happy because of this trick, because later we learn from media, from United States media mainly, that Airbus have a serious problem in United States about bribes, corruption, and they pay 4 billion euros as a penalty for their corruption deals, which was investigated by FBI. So it's absolutely clear. Airbus play wrong in this story to destroy image of Superjet, destroy reputation of Superjet, and to eliminate the competitor.
Wow, this is an interesting perspective.
Yeah, also I studied the timetable of Interjet. They were operating at that moment 15 planes. And it was a complete nonsense. In reality, they need only 6 or 7 with the timetable they had. So they use it like one plane flying 11 hours today, 2 hours tomorrow, 12 hours day after, then again 3 hours, then grounded. So this was so stupid organization of the timetable. I make an article on that, and to my surprise, in a few days, they grounded 8 of those 15 Superjets, starting operating only 7, but in full timetable 10, 11 hours per day. And they continue crying. Problems with Superjets, we were forced to ground another 8 Superjets, which was done just because of my analysis of their timetable. And those planes which they grounded, they were fully operational. They just flying, all 8 flying 1 week ago when they start crying this. And one important point in this story, now the company collapsed and it has a debt of $1.25 billion. And there's bankruptcy procedure, but they still need to pay from this total amount, $380 million they have to pay for Superjets. What this mean? That means that they got all these planes for free. They never pay in reality for these planes. They just got 22 Russian Superjets absolutely for free. And in such circumstances, to say that they have problems because of Superjet is absolute nonsense.
That's absurd.
Yeah. They never ever have a reasonable manager. The guys who were running the airline, they need to go to kindergarten to study something. Not even primary school. That's the story, but still the planes are there, and the depth for these planes are still there. And to get better understanding of the story, these planes, they was financed by 4 banks. Intesa, Italian bank, Natixis, French bank, Russian bank, Web, and German bank, Deutsche Bank. And I was trying to contact these banks. Look, you can get money which you provide to Interjet. Maybe you can take your planes back, and I have operators who are willing to use them. No reaction. They don't care. They lost $380 million. Nobody cares in any of these 4 banks, including the Russian one. That's the reality of our.
That's amazing. So tell me, you had this idea that you proposed that Air Italy should consider now using Superjet to restart their business, and that down the road you could help them with MC-21.
Somehow I realized that just propose something to people do not work at all. They all were reading all this nonsense about spares problems, service problems, and they don't want to deal with Superjet because it's come deep in their head that they will face problem if they use Superjets. So I decided that the only way is to buy the assets of Air Italy. And as a Teo Air, we apply for this certificate. We send official request to liquidators of Air Italy, which was published in all Italian newspapers, magazines, so it's become very well known. But Italy is also not a perfect country from many points of view. These liquidators who are in the same time working for Alitalia, can you imagine such conflict of interest? Liquidators who working for airline which is competitor. They immediately inform unions and employers that they do not have any serious request to buy Air Italy certificate. So the whole story didn't have any continuation, any positive continuation. 4 days ago, there was a decision of Italian government that the Italian government will support employees of Air Italy, 1,450 people. They will get sort of welfare, but still we cannot get this certificate to restart the airline. And on the other hand, there is a lot of additional assets like blankets, plates, in a tremendous quantities in the warehouse, and with a label of Air Italy. Definitely nobody needs this, and these liquidators, they cannot sell this. And they sell it for coins. Because, you know, it's in any textbook, it's written, if before sell something like assets, you need to find who might be interested in these assets. And definitely the company which will continue the business of Air Italy should be interested in all this stuff. But they just prefer to sell it for coins instead of set up a proper auction, which is reasonable in such situation. All employees are there. ENAC, Italian regulation, is keen to restart the certificates based on idea that the same people are still there, and the planes, it's Boeing 737 MAX, which was provided by Qatar, are still there. So it will take 1 month to restart operations. Have
you spoken to Qatar Airways about your ideas for Air Italy?
I was trying many times. I sent direct message to Al Baker via WhatsApp. He somehow he has no interest. I don't know why. Because you know, it's the same story which Qatar have now, like it was during Qatar crisis. The request for flights are much less, and they cannot use their fleet. You know that they have 10 Airbus 380 grounded, and they're not planning to use them. And I did a proposal for Qatar Airways that my new company, Air Italy, will use some of these planes because I know how to use them. Airbus 380 is a fantastic plane with some fantasy. You definitely can employ it. The problem that they don't have this fantasy and they don't want to give others a chance to use these planes. But for Qatar, from financial point, it's extraordinary opportunity. Instead of destroying 10 expensive planes, by the way. Catalog price is $400 million. So 4 billion in catalog price. Okay, let's say they maybe cost 60% less now, but still it's more than billion.
Oleg, do you have a financial backing to do all these things?
Yes, I do. I have support in Russia by one of major Russian bank, who somehow understood that Russia have to export production, not only use it in local market. But by the way, these liquidators, they have absolutely no interest to check financial background. By the way, here's a letter from major Russian bank, which states that they will finance a restart of Air Italy based on superjets.
So
no.
We're going for a long conversation here, but this is fascinating because it's a perspective that has not been made available in the West. Let's talk about the MT-21. That airplane, I spoke with somebody in the US. I don't think he would want me to quote his name, but somebody in the US who is very familiar with the MT-21 and was very impressed with the wing on that airplane because it's so advanced. And the airplane looks like it's, in our own analysis on the MT-21, which we published, we said that we think the MT-21 as it stands with the GTF would be a very good competitor against the MAX and the NEO. Have you got any sense of the MT-21 program and how it's going? The development, the testing?
I know that when Airbus delegation visited production, they was also impressed by the wing. It's step ahead, let's say like this. Regarding the competition with MAX and Airbus 320, it's a different story. It's a different story because MAX, MAX have some problems. The popularity is down because of the incidents. And Airbus made a lot of progress with an important factor like range. And on this matter, I'm even collaborating with Airbus. When they start to push this idea of a long range A321 and extra long range, I suggested to have a look on minimalization of number of seats and weight of passengers in order to extend the range. And I sent them my request, which they in a relatively short time, they elaborated a solution, and now I have a solution on how to operate Airbus 321 for the distance like 8,300 kilometers already now before mass production. And this makes a difference because if we're coming back to economy of aviation, the ability to have a longest range is extremely important. If you can replace Airbus 330, Boeing 777 or Boeing 787 by narrow body plane, you will be the winner for sure. It's similar like if you replace A320 by a superjet, you will be the winner because the task in aviation economy is to minimize the number of seats without losing the comfort and range. And from this point, MC-21 cannot compete with the Airbus 321 long range or extra long range. It has a range now between 5,500 kilometers and 6,000 kilometers. And without extra fuel tanks, this plane I'm not sure it will be the win against Airbus.
Really, that's interesting. I'd never heard, because my impression was that the MC-21 as an airframe offers a lot of opportunity for upgrading and doing those kinds of range issues. But the difficulty for UAC is, of course, capital, research and development capital.
They need to do it right now, not later, not after. Right now, they had to work on the version with the extra fuel tanks to compete with Airbus in this matter. Because if I am CEO of any airline and I have a choice between nice plane with the range 6,000 kilometers or similar plane with 8,000 kilometers, the choice is obvious. This is the key factor for making decision.
Right.
And if we're talking about what I'm trying to push about MC-21, I'm trying to push the idea to produce cargo version. This is not a case in the moment, but I'm pushing and I got support from Deputy Prime Minister of Russian government, Mr. Yuri Borisov, who make it publicly known that this is a good idea. So I found a European operator who is willing to use MC-21 cargo as its main model. So we are in process of pushing of this agenda.
If we could go to a last item that I want to talk to you about. You mentioned an interesting point earlier on about Russia needs to focus on exporting its product. And you've mentioned obviously the difficulty in Italy, in Mexico. We didn't even talk about CityJet, which also had a problem with Superjet, which may or may not be Superjet related based on what you're telling me. But the obvious market for UAC is Iran. And Iran is the last big market out there that needs aircraft, lots of them. Of course, US sanctions have not helped anybody getting airplanes in there, but a Russian version of, for example, Superjet that doesn't have Western technology should be able to be exported there without any limitations. Is there any thinking on Russian airplanes going into Iran that you could share?
You know, the limit of using US technology or parts in Superjet is 10%. And the current version of Superjet before any changes is about 12-15% of Boeing involvement. And well, with the program which Russia running now, it might be possible that it will be less than 10, quite possible. But the plane after such changes will need another certification, which is expensive. And now the certification in Russia, the Russian authorities can do it. Maybe it's more simple, but for export, it's not so simple, not so cheap. So I'm not really sure that Iran is a proper market for Superjet. And also when it was announced 40 planes goes to Iran and Russia applied to United States asking if we can do this. What I do not like, there was an announcement that Russia will finance this deal. This is definitely wrong. Russia should not finance any deal for Iranian market. Russia can finance deal for European market, but Iran is emergency market. It didn't really know what will be next, what sort of sanctions against Iran and so on and so on. And Russia definitely should not risk its own financial resources, which are limited. It's not United States. We are not printing dollars. And it's even not Europe. So I stated publicly that Russia should move Superjets to European market only at the moment, and maybe to Mexican market, because in Venice we still have 4 planes which was prepared for Interjet and not taken. And the natural idea is to find an airline in Mexico or nearby and implement all those planes grounded in Mexico now, plus these 4 planes. So Europe and Mexico, nothing more really. And
Right.
also maybe Thailand. Thailand has 3 planes.
Right, for the royal family.
Yeah. So it will be maybe more easy to.
What about Africa?
Africa, I like several places, like Mauritius. And another place which is interesting is Cabo Verde. And Africa in general, I don't believe it's really market for superjet. It's too risky, and only if someone in Africa fully finance, then maybe. But
Right.
Russian financing is definitely not a good idea.
Oleg, it's been fantastic having this conversation, a perspective that I think we in the West really need is the one that you've shared here today, a different perspective. And I think that perhaps we could plan to have another conversation in a few months, maybe 90 days from now, an update on how things are evolving. So thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm always open. This is my mantra. I speak anytime I can speak, because people, to live better, they need expertise. And if I know a bit more than others, I have to share. That's my fundamental principle.
Thank you.